Okay, so um, I'm going to show you how to create a door which is going to hinge and open into this room, and it's going to be interactive. So the first thing is we need to create the door. Now we could make it inside the Unreal Game Engine, but I'm going to show you how to make it inside 3dsMax, Autodesk 3dsMax. Obviously we need the dimensions of the door, so I've just selected the subtraction brush which we've used to create the doorway, and we can look at the dimensions, and you can see the width of the door is 90 centimeters and the height of the door is 200 centimeters. So we just remember those two numbers. Okay, obviously the door's going to be the thickness of the walls, and I think we put the walls as 10 centimeters, so I can just double check that. If we look down, it's actually 20, so the thickness of the door will be 20 centimeters. So we go back to, we open up 3dsMax. Now any model that you create inside the Unreal Game Engine, you need to make sure that you've set up the correct measurements inside 3dsMax. So if you go to Customize at the top and go to Unit Setup, just make sure the display units are in centimeters and the system unit setup is 1 unit equals 1 centimeters. Press OK. Now if you do that once, that should remain, but it's always a good idea to double check because you might go on a different machine and that may be set up differently. Okay, so we go to the Create tab, which should be on by default, which is the little plus sign. Let's just create a box. As you can see, the length, the width and the height we can put in, and they're in centimeters now, so we know the height is 200 centimeters. And we know the width. You can see, we can choose by changing the width. You can see the width represents the thickness, so we know that's 20 centimeters. And then finally, the length is 90. So there's the door inside 3dsMax, which matches exactly to the doorway that we've got. We'll just maximize that. Now, the problem is at the moment is that if we rotate this object, it rotates around its center. Remember, this is going to be a door which is going to hinge. If I just go back to the Unreal Game Engine, obviously the door's going to hinge here, and the door's going to hinge from this point, so it's going to hinge and then rotate in towards that door when it opens. So we go back to 3dsMax. We want the hinge point to be in this point here. Okay, let's double check that. That looks about right. Yeah, that's right. So how do we move the axis point? If we go to the Move tool, you can see the axis point of this model. We go over to the different tabs. There's a Hierarchy tab, and there's the Effect Pivot Point Only tab. This is where you can move the pivot point. Now we want to snap this to that corner. We go up to the top. Okay, there is a snapping in 3D. Make sure that's highlighted. Right click on it, and we want to snap it to the vertex, and that's fine. So when we move this, you can see that it snaps to the vertices. And if we snap it to there, that's affected that. So that's okay. So I've deselected it. The last thing that we need to do, we just turn off snap. We now need to move this object to the center of the world. Okay, because if it does, the access point will be not be moved. So very easy. Select move and then 0 out its the location in the world. As you can see now, the access point is still in the right place and we've centered the object. And lastly, the object selected, just give it a new name, call it door. The next little video will just show you how to apply a material to the door in 3dsMax. Okay, just going to show you how to apply a quick material to this door. Very easy. Just go up to the material editor. Now, there's still two different versions of material editor. There's the old version and there's the slate version. Make sure that you've selected the slate version. Drag in a physical material. If we double click on it, you can actually give it a name. So just call it door underscore map, and that's what it'll appear inside the Unreal Game Engine. And we're just going to add a very basic texture to it. So base color map, drag from there, select bitmap, and we're just going to go to our folder on our desktop. Go find it. It's in Unreal. There's it gone. Build textures. There we go. Door. Open up. Okay, so I've got my door texture. Just make sure that you select Show Shaded Material in Viewport. You see the little red mark across there. Our door's already selected. There's a little icon called Assign Material to Selection. We'll apply that. And then we can see the material on our door. And if you notice, if we zoom in a little bit, you notice that it's different dimensions on here than it is on the side. So we could just fix that. Go to Modify, drop that down. Look for UVW map, and see that little orange gizmo. If we put that back to box, it reverts it back to what it was. This is how it projects the texture onto the surface of the model. And if we go on the modifier tab and open it up and select gizmo, we can then scale this gizmo, and you can see that's scaling there. And we can have a look what that looks like. And that's okay. It's alright. Okay. And then we can add a edit poly modifier, and then that's ready now to export. So go to File, Export, and I'm just going to export it to a location. going to save into building textures. I'm just going to call it door and save. On dialog box comes off in geometry, just make sure you've got smoothing groups selected, tangent by normals, triangle, preserve edge orientation, everything else in there will be deselected. And if you scroll down, just make sure you tick embed media, because that will then send the texture that's on this object into that same place. And press OK. Don't worry if there's an issue here, it should be okay. Press OK. So it's now being exported to Unreal. We can import inside this folder, so import, and the door's already in the building textures folder on my computer, so I'll import it in. And it's got auto generate collisions, so we can leave that on. Okay, another little tip, if it's made of more than one mesh inside 3dsMax, just make sure you've got combined meshes selected. I'll click that anyway, and just go import. And as you can see, the mesh has been imported. Okay, and save all. We've got a little slight problem, it hasn't imported it in. We'll need to check why that is.